Greetings, Zimbabwe, and welcome once again to the WellPay Conversations right here on Zimbabwe Daily. This is the day that we come again speaking about issues affecting young people and in terms of leadership and their participation. And today we've got that hot topic that everyone wants to avoid, but it's important if we are going to start hearing the young people speak on issues of their concern. And today we are talking about silencing of youth voices, how political violence stifles youthful participation in leadership and decision making processes. Yes, so if you are just joining us, this is a program brought to you by the Women's Academy for Leadership and Political Excellence, WALPE. And today I have got my panelists that you can see on your screens right now, and I'm going to allow each and every one of them to introduce themselves and yes, commence this discussion. I'll start with you, Chidadi. So please unmute your mic and speak to our audiences.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon. I hope we're all well. My name is Chidadi So Francis Cambazo. As written on the screen, I'm a Pandia Zimbabwe Youth Advisory Board member, and I'm also the Young People's Network on Sexual Reproductive Health, HIV and AIDS for our provincial facilitator. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chidadi. So we look forward to learning a lot from you. Over to you, Mr. Shadrach.
Okay, thank you very much to hear from you. My name is Shadrach Mishek Munondo. I am just an aspiring youth leader. I'm here as a youth who has a passion to advocate the youth's voice, to train the youth to be leaders. And as well, I love youth. I love to be a volunteer in these organizations that help us to be elevated in the political things so that we become a better future tomorrow. And as well, I've been a peer educator who has been being against drugs that are being taken by the youth. So I'm a person who loves to be around youth, helping them to tell them about how drugs can affect their lives. They can kill their future. They can kill the generation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm sure you're going to come in handy telling us a little bit more about how young people can be able to participate in politics without the effects of drugs taking their lives. Thank you so much and welcome. Over to you, Rutendo. Kindly unmute your mic and speak to us.
Okay, thank you. My name is Rutendo Chiguada, and I'm an aspiring youth leader. So I'm just looking forward to having a bright and blessed discussion with you here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So yes, just to give a little bit of a background, so we are doing these conversations in a way that we want to spark the debate and find out why young people are deciding not to participate in leadership and decision making processes in our country and also across Africa. As you know, young people are everywhere. So I want to start this conversation by just talking a little bit about political violence having a profound effect on youth participation in leadership and decision making processes. The silencing of young voices has far reaching consequences for their future and the future of democracy. So this panel discussion aims to explore the ways in which political violence stifles youth participation and also to identify strategies to amplifying their voices. So I want to start with you, Chidadi. So what would you say are the barriers to youth participation and leadership and decision-making processes in Zimbabwe?
All right. Thank you so much for the question. So, firstly, I feel like, for the longest time, as young people, we've sort of pushed the governance issues to the adults. In our heads, we'd probably think that when it comes to governance, when it comes to lawmaking, when it comes to councillors and MPs, it's all for the adults, right? So, we never saw the necessity to actually take up spaces. And I feel it's something that we've been advocating for lately, but I think what really hindered or what could be hindering young people is the whole perception that governance issues are mostly for the adults. And then secondly, I feel also that we can say that there could possibly be some form of gatekeeping. Talking maybe to the adults to say that, at some point they don't really believe in young people having the capacity to actually lead and be part of either the political sphere or even be part of governance. So I think it's the lack of belief in young people, and I also feel it's also because of the gatekeeping aspect, to say that sometimes they want to stay in those positions. They don't really want to make space for the young people. And I feel also the phrase that we usually say, Kuti, young people are the future or the future leaders, right? That's one phrase that I feel has also killed us as young people, especially when it comes to our participation, because in our heads we are the future. But then we should notice that is it about 65% of the population are young people. So that means that as young people we're actually the present leaders, not the future leaders. So the moment that we try to really change those statements to say young people are not the future, they are the present, that would work, so that we ensure that young people participate in those issues. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You raise pretty critical issues here that as a community, as a nation, as a continent, we need to begin to look at and really analyze. Welcome, Purpose.
Thank,
We
thank
had already
you.
started the conversation, but I'll give you the floor right now to just introduce yourself and tell us where you're coming from.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Purpose Transhita Mangana. I'm a third year student at the University of Zimbabwe doing political science and diplomacy. Um, I'm a philanthropist. I'm also an aspiring farmer, and I'm also interested in girl child empowerment and networking. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Pepos, for coming through. So we had already started the conversation with Chidadi, so coming through and telling us that there are a number of issues that can be barriers to youth participation in leadership and decision-making processes in Zimbabwe, issues to do with governance issues, being left to the elderly not believing in the capacity of young people, the gatekeeping that we see as the elderly wants to do not want to create space, and that young people are leaders for the future and not really taking note that young people are really leaders of today. I want to come to you, Shadrach. What's your own take about this?
This issue. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you now, Shadrach. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Uh, about the issue of silencing of the youth voice, how political violence stifles useful participation in leadership and decision making. Sometimes there's a lot that happens in terms of youth. Youth, sometimes we have got that thing, that mindset that was being, I'm seconding my sister there, that you have attained that this is meant for the older people more than us. So be thinking it's a culture that way. We thought it's a culture that way. However, there are other things that we face as a youth in the political environment. It's about fear. Fear. Sometimes we got fear. Like when there is violence, many young people, they are hesitant to engage in political activity or speak against injustice and
Mm-hmm.
uh, injustice that's suppressing human rights. Or sometimes as a youth you'll be seeing the environment that you are living within the country, like African countries. You'll be seeing yourself, the moment you speak your say, it cannot be heard because you can be suppressed on what you speak. You cannot engage into those places because you can be, maybe you can be beaten, maybe you can be affected in your life, because those things, they can kill even in the future. So fear, it is a common cause kuti if ndikangotanga nekupinda pachigaro, ndikangotanga nekuda kusimudza musoro, then what will be happening in my life? Maybe I'll be haunted in my life by certain political areas and the security systems. Number two, the other thing, uh, it's about trust issues. leading, trusting. It's not an easy thing to just trust where you can see that the political climate is a limited zone for us as youth. We cannot enter into that place because trust, even into to get into someone's life, even to try to be supported by the elders, they can disengage you, they can limit you, they can hinder you, so that you won't see your potential. So sometimes our potential is limited because we lack trust to the elders. That's what I can say.
Right. Thank you so much, Shadrach. Over to you, Pepos. What do you think?
Youth from participating in political spaces as fear, as Shadrach has alluded before me, fear of intimidation in the political spheres, as well as there is lack of safe spaces for youth to organize themselves and to express themselves so that they can be heard. As you all know, there is what can we call it? There is freedom of expression, but there is no freedom after expression. So that actually hinders many of the youth out there from from expressing themselves and from engaging more in political spaces out there. Thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that there is freedom of expression, but no freedom after expression. Over to you, Rutendo. You may want to unmute your mic. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. So I think that, as my colleagues have said, the youth are too afraid to express themselves because, um, as Purpose said, that there is no freedom after expression. Um, we can also see that it is hard to say something as a youth because it is considered as something that is not meaningful, and it's something that the young people are feeling, and it's not really considered as something that is seen to benefit the whole nation or a lot of people at large. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Rutendo. Now, I want us to move into the crux of our topic. And we're talking about how political violence stifles youthful participation. Would you say that now, where we are right now, could we say that we are seeing some of the effects of political violence on youth engagement in politics right here in Zimbabwe? What would you say are some of those effects of political violence? Shadrach, I'll start with you on this one.
Come again? Why would I?
Okay, I said I'm going to start with you on this one to look at the short and long term effects of political violence on youth engagement in politics.
Okay, youth engaging in political, like to state the violence or to state something, the effects of political engagement.
The effects of political violence on youth engagement in politics.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, this thing, the effects, it's like this will lead to limited opportunities, and like you cannot have something that is tangible in your life. You cannot have something that is cannot be seen in your life, like access to education, training, and leadership development opportunity for young people. This thing plays a role because political instability and violence can limit access to education, training, and leadership development opportunities for young people. Meaning to say that there are things that can cause a lot of problems as youth. We can be affected by what we want to do because by having uh, education, it helps us to be wise enough to understand the things of the politics. By having resources as well, it helps us to understand. Sometimes we lack resources for us to gather up so that we enter into the youth, into the political careers. We can no longer enter into our careers because sometimes we lack resources. So these are the effects that can affect our lives. These are the effects that can cause a lot of limitations and limited opportunities in our lives. That's what I can say.
All right, thank you very much. I'll come to you, Pepos. What would you say are some of the effects of political violence on youth participation and uptake of political engagement?
Violence leads to displacement and loss of community support structures, whereby people are not able to support or to stand for what they believe in as a community.
Pepos, sorry, let me just come in a little bit. We can hardly hear you. Do you mind just taking off your video and moving a little bit closer to your device so that we can like hear you?
I'm using a PC.
Okay, that's fine.
Am I not clear?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. You may go ahead.
Okay. So as I was saying, political violence leads to displacement and loss of community support structures, whereby people, even our fellow members in the community, they will be now afraid to support us. And for for the young people, like when you don't have support or enough support from your community, it hinders people to stand up for themselves and to express themselves better and to try to express themselves, to stand for what they believe in and what they want to see in as far as they are participating in the political arena. So by the displacement and loss of community support, it stands as the impact of political violence, which hinders success and growth for the youth.
All right. Thank you, Pepos. Rutendo, what's your own take on this one? Please unmute and speak.
Okay, I would say political violence causes mental health and trauma to the youth. In the sense that when one grows up um, seeing the violence in the political arena,
Mm,
it is in they are instilled fear in them. They'll be like, when I grow up, I don't want to participate in this stuff because people die, people get arrested, people get harassed, and all. So it is all in the mental health of the young people. So it pushes them back, and it makes their decision making uh their decision makings towards politics to be shunned away. So yeah, that's what I
mm.
think.
All right. Thank you, Rutendo. And Shidadiso, what's your own take on the effects of political violence on youth participation?
All right. I won't say much because I feel most of the things have already been touched. So we're
Mm,
talking about how young people shy away from political spaces because of the fear of the violence. I remember
mm,
at some point you can be having a conversation with your friends and they'll tell you that, okay, no, I don't do politics. There's a lot of violence, or what if you get killed? There's like so much stigma surrounding just participating in politics. So I feel most of the time it really results in young people shying away from political spaces.
mm.
They are fearing for their lives. They think that if I take this up, it's going to put me and probably the people that are close to me in danger. So I would rather not take the risk and just continue and let things be.
Right. Yeah. So just let things be. So political violence speaks to various areas. It speaks of the use of force, intimidation, or coercion to achieve political goals or suppress political opponents. It can be perpetrated by political parties, non state actors, the state itself, and can take many forms, including physical violence, where we hear of assault, torture, murder, or other forms of physical harm. We have psychological violence, where there's intimidation, threats, or emotional manipulation. I think the guys have already alluded to the stigma around participation in politics because of its violent nature, how people tend to shy away from decision-making positions and spaces because they don't want to sound like they are challenging the status. We speak of structural violence, systematic inequality, discrimination, or institutionalized oppression. Muribana, your children, you can't stand up and do anything. And there's cultural violence, destruction of cultural heritage, symbols, or identity. Somebody talked about displacements, causing young people to lose that community support in their growth in terms of their direction. So I want us to take this conversation a step further and ask this question to you, Mishek, like how does exposure to political violence affect youth mental health and well-being? I know, Ritendo, you touched a little bit on it, but I want to try and find that linkage between young people not participating in these important spaces and the use of drugs and substance.
Okay. Exposure to political violence, like you are saying, in terms of as well drugs, and
Yes.
you find with in terms of youth, you see them maybe when they are stressed. Sometimes you have to close your mind with drugs such as ngoma, njengu, something like that. These things, they contribute a lot in the effects of youth being in the political structure, because by getting involved in doing drugs as well, he's causing himself or herself to be under uh like high, something like mental health wise. She or he won't be okay in terms of her mental. So that thing will cause imbalance, even though he wants to participate in the political. And even though he wants to participate in the political, it's very, even the elders won't be able to support him, because they'll be thinking that he won't be responsible because of taking drugs. That's why you see many people, those are drunkards, they are when they are seen by being drunk, they have no access to enter into that place, because what you will be do, who will you lead if you are drunk? If you are drunk, you cannot raise what is needed in the concerns of the community. The community won't support you because you are the person who is drunk. So they cannot manage to assist you. If you're not, we cannot be assisted if you fail to walk the way that the elders. So sometimes there is a gap between us and the elders because of the drugs. We can have a gap. Hello. You see, so sometimes you may blame the elders, but at the end, you will see that us as youth, we play a vital role as well in terms of looking for support because of drugs. We cannot be elevated by the elders, but the elders are the one that commemorates us, that elevates us, that as well demote us. So if you have a bad character, you won't be supported in terms of political issues. You won't win the war between the elders. But if you try to be a person who is good enough to hang yourself and to be responsible enough to fight with the community in terms of being the leader, then you are good to go. But in terms of drugs, you are in trouble, because they can kill your ego, they can kill your responsibilities. Drugs, they can fight you. Whatever you think, you are limited in that zone, because you'll be thinking on your own, not others. That's how we tend to be limited in those areas. That's what I can say.
Right. And I want to ask Rutendo, because when you were speaking about the short and long term effects of political violence on youth engagement in politics, you did mention the issue of mental health, being mental health and trauma following young people who have been exposed to political violence. Would you say that the season of drug and substance use that we find ourselves in is as a result of a period in our country where political violence was used as a tool to suppress voices in our country? Would you say this is one of those effects of this exposure, Rutendo?
Well, I can't really say it is one of the effects, but then
Mm,
um, when it comes to mental health and drugs, one makes a decision to engage into drugs, right? So,
right.
um, let me just answer your question. Like, I can't really say that the political violence stuff caused the youth to engage into drugs.
Okay. So how can the media be used? I don't know if if you feel like we've not exhausted the question, guys, do feel free to just come in, indicate, and do feel free to say something about it. Chidadi, so Purpose, I know I didn't ask you this question, but if you feel you have something to add, do feel free to unmute your mic and just say something so that we are all involved in this conversation. Um, but I would want to move on and ask if at all how the media can be used to leverage and to amplify youth voices against political violence and promote their participation in politics. Chidadiso.
All right, thank you so much for the question. I feel media would play a very pivotal role when it comes to these issues because I feel like most young people nowadays are always on social media. Maybe to reference to the Kenya situation, you'd find out that during the time when the finance bill came out, a lot of young people actually started mobilizing the protest on social media. If you were in Kenya, you'd see TikTok videos popping up, that way, like explaining the finance bill in a minute and things like that. That shows how powerful social media can be when it comes to this. So I feel, excuse me, I feel we can use social media as a space where we bring together young people, we enlighten them on the importance of actually participating in political spaces, but also make sure that as time goes on, we use social media as a tool to ensure that youth actually participate. It could be in the form of Facebook posts. We're talking about TikTok, Twitter, you name it, just putting it all over social media because I feel it plays a very big role in ensuring that young people can actively participate. And also, when it comes to also information, because as we always say, knowledge is power. And if you are a Christian, the Bible says that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. So if we empower young people using social media and give them knowledge, I think that's the right way to go. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much. So you spoke about using social media as a mobilization tool. You spoke of social media as a medium to educate and inform the young people. Purpose, what's your own take?
Media can be a tool that can be used to spread a certain message. The abuse of social media can be detrimental, especially to the society. I can give an example of Twitter spaces that are being abused by certain individuals to push their own personal agendas. That's got to do with politics, and we've seen how it has damaged the whole political atmosphere and the whole political arena, where now people have different views. Whenever someone thinks of politics, they now have these views because of certain individuals that have been using social media to their advantage. So social media, it can be a good tool if used with dignity, if used with wisdom. But abuse of social media can lead to many people they can be endangered and they can be suffering as well as mentally, emotionally, as well as psychologically because of that. Thank you.
Right. You talk of how social media can be useful if used correctly, but how it can also be detrimental when it is abused. Now, I just want to know, I just want to know, like, what initiates. Sorry, I could hear a bit of noise in the background. Rutendo, did you want to come through? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say that in as much as we can use the social media platforms, um, personally, I would want backup. I would want protection so that I'm able to express whatever that I'll be feeling politically, right? So
Mm,
I can't go on social media and um, be politically involved, and then at the end of the day, I get threatened, or I I hope you are getting what I'm trying to say.
mm,
Um, yeah. So before we use the media to help the youth to engage into political stuff, we should at least give them assurance yekuti you're supported, mnachekuta, and you are free to express yourselves.
mm. Okay, Chidadi, so do you agree with that? You may want to unmute your mic, Chidadiso. All right. Chidadiso does not seem to be able to hear us. Shadrach, what's your take?
Social media, about social media in the politic. Um, Sometimes uh, social media also has challenges. You must understand this, like misinformation
Mm.
or sometimes being harassed. You are given threats.
Mm. For some
Sometimes,
reason, I kind of feel like you guys are also even afraid to discuss this, like how political violence can actually stifle your full participation in leadership and decision-making processes. Is it because you are highly conscious, or what's going on?
no, no, no. We are on.
Okay. Yeah, because I really think that we should be able to really unpack it so that even if we take this conversation to our community, we have a lot of people who have tuned in on our Twitter spaces. It's not just people in Zimbabwe, we've got people in other countries across the continent who are also tuned in, and they also want to appreciate your own landscape in Zimbabwe and how that has impacted your participation as young people in leadership and decision making processes. Um, how intense is it? Have we gotten to that point where young people just self censor? If you feel this is not, or I may not be safe, like what was highlighted, that there is freedom of expression, but there's no freedom after the expression, or is it fear of the unknown? Has any one of you ever experienced a situation where you spoke out and you were attacked before because of that, or we are now using experience of, like, before, what we have heard in the news, in the media, like so and so was beaten in such a place, or so and so was faced, or a village was threatened, that if they do this they'll be punished. Is it an experience of yourselves, or it's an experience that you've gotten off reading from the media? I want all of you to, like, respond to this at this juncture. But Shadrach, please, you okay? I see Purpose, you are speaking. Purpose.
This is just common sense. It's not like for us to mention something we should have experience of it, like first hand information. cannot say we have been taught it or we once came across it. But this is just common sense, logically speaking.
I'm not so sure that that common sense is very common. I don't know. I want you guys to come
It's
in
not
here.
so common. We can agree on that one. It's not so common, but come on.
Rutendo.
Come on.
Chidadiso.
And I would say it's just the fear of the unknown.
Okay, fear of the unknown. It's just
Yeah.
fear of the unknown. Okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Rutendo. Chidadiso, do you want to say something? I'm not sure if it's my network, but I can't hear anything. Okay, that's Chidadiso just informing us that she can't hear. Okay. Shadrach, please come through.
Sometimes, sometimes it's about an experience of what people see, of what people happen to them, not me. You will be seeing through people what
Right.
happened. So that thing can be an effect on me, thinking that maybe it can happen to me. But as well, it's about learning as well. We are learning. It's about learning and understanding what is being said. It's about common sense.
All right. So people says it's common sense. Shadrach agrees it's common sense. Rutendo says, you know what, it's self-preservation here. But and that's perfectly okay, because I think it then addresses to some of the issues that we're talking about as impact of political violence in the participation of young people. Now, I want us to speak on strategies that we can employ to amplify youth voices. I know we spoke largely on social media, how we can use social media as a platform to mobilize, to educate, to inform, and and as a and there were also issues highlighted of security of the person, that yes, I may have spoken on social media, but what is the backup that I get, or what is the protection that I have? So what role can educational institutions play in empowering youth to participate in leadership and decision making processes? We have all this information with us, but what role can education as an institution play to empower young people to participate in leadership and decision making?
Thank you very much.
Yes, Shadrach.
I think you were saying about strategies and to engage ourselves to youth political and
Yes, and the role that the educational institutions can play in empowering young people for leadership and decision making processes.
I think there's a need, there's a room of creation of youth friendly political spaces.
Okay.
Uh, like to create inclusive environments for youth to engage in politics free from intimidation or free from fear, to allow them to have that freedom uh, that they are taught, so that they express the things to give out to the society or to the community. So you cannot rise as a youth if you are not given that free space in a country where it believes to suppress people's youth. So there is a role that has to be there is a role that has to be played, so that the youth will rise in politics, so that they be given that freedom, that openness, whereby they stand their ground and they stand with their rights, because sometimes the rights, they can be suppressed. But if they give us those rights, then we are able to be free enough to be above fear, so that we stand on that place if we are given that enough space and environment that is yes, freedom of expression.
All right. I don't know if Chidadi, so you can hear us, but yes, you can also come through. Chidadiso, the floor is yours. All right. I see Rutendo. You want to say something? Please come through.
Okay, so um, it is important for the education educational institution to teach to address the root causes of political violence in a way yokuthi they create more opportunities nema what can I say, rallies or what, to teach the youth, to empower them, also to include them in some of the decision makings about the political stuff. Also, as Shadrick said, where the youth are supposed to feel safe around the political area, and then yeah, that's all.
All right. Thank you. Chidadiso says they can play the role of capacity building young people, encourage young people to actively participate in spaces. They should not just give the youth a seat at the table, but allow them to set the table. This is an interesting perspective that you bring, Chidadiso, that young people should not just be given the seats at the table, but we should allow the young people to set their own table. Purpose, what do you think about this?
Hello.
Purpose, yes, we can hear you.
Can I please have the question again?
All right. I was saying that Chidadiso noted that young people should not just be given seats at the table, but they should be allowed to set a table for themselves. What do you think about that notion?
I have no comment on that one.
You don't think that young people should be able to set up their own table and participate?
There's need for mentoring. There's a
Okay.
need for a mentor. So if am actually given a platform where I can set my own table without being mentored fully, I feel like it would be a disaster.
Right. Right, that's really critical. I'm sure in our previous conversation, people talked about the need to mentor the young people to take over leadership positions. That's really, really critical. Now, I want us to move forward as we come to our last segment of this conversation. The way forward, really, what policies, what legislative changes are needed to be put in place to protect youth participation in leadership and decision making processes. Rutendo, Chidadiso, Shadrach, you guys are too quiet. Are you there?
We are there. We are there. We are there.
Okay.
My phone just had a breakup system, but I'm back then.
All right. So now we want to move on to the way forward, to then say look at efforts that have been put in place by be it civic society organizations or community leaders in promoting youth participation in politics and decision making processes, and what policies can be introduced to allow for that. Shadrach. Okay, Shadrach, we can't hear you. Anyone wants to come through for this one? We just lost Rutendo. Purpose, would you want to come here? Would you want to come in?
Can I please have the
Okay.
question again?
All right.
Okay.
Sir,
Okay, so I'm going to give the question again. I'm looking at efforts that have been done, all right, by civic society organizations or community leaders in promoting youth participation. Have you had that space created for you as young people to to equip you to equip you for leadership and decision making processes?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm back. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mishek.
Okay. It's about the civic society.
Yes, what
role that
efforts have been made? Yes.
uh, the civic society they play a role in training and building programs for youth to develop leadership and political skills. So that uh, capacity building to provide programs to the youth so that they can attain their leadership skills and as well by training the youth they can have a hearsay, because if you are not trained you cannot stand in front of that. If you are not trained you cannot be in the political atmosphere. And as well, the other thing that I can say on my own, adding to that, is that we, we need a certain percentage that involves youth to enter into the politics so that they can know how to take part in the political spheres. That's what I can say, because as youth, if we are allowed, if the government allows, maybe to say, we need a certain percentage of people to play a role in participating in the youth, I think that would be the best for us as youth, so that we participate, so that it must not be the adults only, but it must be as well us as youth. We must be given a certain percentage so that we play our part in the politics.
Right. In our very first conversation, we had one of our panelists saying that leadership should not be a preserve of the view, but that everyone from primary school level should begin to be trained around leadership, so that every young person, even if they are not to be a prefect in that year or whatnot, they are able to be a leader unto themselves. Chidadi, so are you able to come through right now and speak to some of the policy or legislative changes that are needed in order to protect youth participation in Zimbabwe? Chidadi, so you may want to unmute your mic so that we can hear you. Okay, whilst Chidadi so comes through, can we have Purpose once again?
Hello.
Did you hear my question, Purpose?
No.
Yes, I want you to come through and speak to policies or legislative changes that are needed in order to protect youth participation in leadership and decision-making processes in Zimbabwe.
Policies that can be implemented by our policymakers. I feel like we should start with inclusive policy making processes, whereby the youth and the young people will actually have a seat, or will actually have to sit at the table during the policy making processes, and air out their views, and air out what they think. So, in as far as make policy making is concerned, as well as for policymakers to allocate funding and resources to support youth-led organizations, such as campaigns, community development projects that the youth are actually vouching for. I think if policymakers actually look into this, it will actually bring up a change in our societies, especially in Zimbabwe per se.
Okay. Um, Rutendo, you may also want to unmute your mic and speak to us. Rutendo, are you there? All right. So, as we round up our conversation, how can youth be supported to become active agents of change in their communities and in the political processes? We're having this conversation around the silencing of youth voices, how political violence stifles youthful participation in leadership and decision making processes. And I'm sure the climate of this conversation speaks to the gravity of this issue. I want to give you guys a minute each so that we may conclude this conversation where you just add your final insights into this conversation. If we were to make propositions as young people, how do you propose that youth be supported to become active agents of change in their communities and in the political processes? I'll start with you, Purpose.
How youth can be supported to become active, active agents of change by
Yes.
providing leadership training programs where leaders can be trained, where the government and the international organizations all have to launch leadership development programs that are actually targeted for young people, and where they can be given a platform to go through under a leadership training and enhance themselves.
All right. Shadrach.
We have to understand this as a youth. The thing that we mostly like to want is like to be celebrated our successes more than our weaknesses, so that we play a role in the political sector. And we have to be given an access to resources, so that we do our best in terms of both youth. We are still energetic, and we can still run. We are still so energized to work with the what with the with the work, so that we play a part in the policy. So we need to be celebrated as well, so that we have that confidence built enough for us to be leaders of tomorrow.
Mm. Mm. That's a powerful point, and I think the fact that it's being raised in each and every one of these conversations that we're having, it means it's really, really critical. The issue of celebrating our successes as young people more than our failures. Yes, thank you very much, Chidadi. So, are you there, Rutendo? I can see you in the studio. Are you able to unmute your mics and speak to us? All right. So yes, we have lost Chidadiso and Rutendo. Their network is becoming a problem. But yeah, this has been a very informative conversation, if I may say so myself. There are a number of things that have come out that I believe we can use in order to shift the trajectory of our policy making and our legislation in order to facilitate for the participation of young people in politics and decision making. Yes, we spoke about the delegitimization of democratic spaces or processes when we employ political violence. We speak of disillusionment with political participation, increased barriers to political participation, and higher likelihood of giving up in the face of obstacles. And when we look at the apathy that is in existence in our society with the young people, it shows that. The political violence that we have witnessed in our country, in different countries across the continent, have had this kind of effect on young people, taking a back seat even when they are capable. But in the long term, in the long term, what it also does is that it lowers political participation rates. Young people just disengage from political processes. There's a perpetuation. I mean, it becomes a culture. Somebody talks about political violence becoming enmeshed in our culture, and the negative impact on mental health and well-being that political violence will have on young people. So, in as we round off this conversation, the silencing of youth voices has significant consequences for their future and the future of democracy. So, by exploring the impact of political violence on youth participation and identifying strategies for amplifying these voices, we can work towards creating a more inclusive and equitable society for all. This has been an insightful conversation brought to you by the Women's Academy for Leadership and Political Excellence, WAUPE, the silencing of youth voices, how political violence stifles youthful participation in leadership and decision. I hope this conversation will continue in your areas. Do like, do comment, do share, and allow us to continue having these conversations, even in our homes, in our society, in our governance structures, in civic society, in every form of governance structure that is available, so that we are able to boost the confidence of the young people. Swangile, you say this has been well informative, and yes, thank you so much, Tanatswa. You say the confidence is very fragile on a platform that believes that the earth was created in 6 days. Thank you so much for your comment, Tanatswa. We really appreciate you coming through and commenting. Do like this conversation, share it, and let's continue to engage even after we finish this program. It's a pleasure having had to be with you. Thank you so much. May God bless you and have yourselves a wonderful rest of the week. We're going into the weekend. So enjoy your weekend and God bless you. It's bye bye for now.